The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website.
Hello everyone and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renault. As you can see, we are standing in the middle of the Sunken Gardens in Lincoln, Nebraska, an absolutely gorgeous place and just a gem for the city. Today we want to talk to a couple of the coordinators of the volunteers. You don't want to miss it.
Hi everyone, it is a great pleasure to have Dr. Judy Harvey with us on Live and Learn. Dr. Harvey is an associate professor of practice and she's also a certified speech-language pathologist. In addition to her teaching at UNL, she also holds a memory workshop on the UNL East Campus. You'll want to stay tuned.
I'm your host of Live and Learn, Doug Jost. Mel Maines was an iconic broadcaster, and he was the news anchor at KLLN for 34 years. Stay tuned for an interesting discussion about Mel's life and his contribution to our community.
You can read a book with your ears or your fingers. We'll tell you how.
This and more on today's Live and Learn.
You are getting a great view of one of the really truly wonderful places in Lincoln, Nebraska. It is the Sunken Gardens. Hello everyone and welcome to Live and Learn. I am your host, Jerry Renault. We want to talk to you today about the Sunken Gardens. It is October, but still plenty of time to come on out and enjoy just the wonderful things that you'll be able to see out here at the Sunken Gardens. And we wanted to give you a little bit of background information about it as well. And we have two absolutely fabulous guests joining us today. It is Cindy Paling. She is the volunteer coordinator for the Sunken Gardens, and Jeff Ahern, who is one of the top gardeners that is working here. Thank you both for taking some time. I've been watching you work, and I know you are both very busy, so thanks for giving us a little bit of time to talk about this today. Of course, I always think it's a good idea to give our audience a little bit of background about some guests on the show. Tell us a little bit about how each of you got involved in working here at the Sunken Gardens.
Okay, so in 2016, I came for a visit, and one of the supervisors was here with all the Garden Gap people. And so I approached him and just asked, how do I volunteer? Because I had just moved to Lincoln.
Okay.
And so I started as a volunteer in 2016. And then 2017, they had a position open up. So nice. I became a seasonal laborer. Okay. So I worked throughout the season from wake up to the beds to put the beds to bed. So just a year ago, I became volunteer coordinator and coordinate all of the wake up the beds, all of the events that we have here at the garden.
Okay.
So,
did you have some background in gardening, or was it just something that you liked doing?
Well, I love doing it. I grew up on a farm here in Nebraska, and then I've had a garden and a flower garden in Kansas City where we lived, and so I just love it. And it was a learning process at my house because I had a lot of different flowers. And so here I am.
Oh, very good. Jeff, how about you? You've been here for about a year now. Tell us about how that came about.
Just over a year. I was brought up on a farm also, so I love being outside and working outdoors. The last 15 years, I was a preschool teacher. So I worked at nature-based Montessori preschool the last 10 years. And at 40, I decided to switch gears, and I saw that this position was open. And I see the value in being outdoors and sharing education of different plants and just enjoying the sun and being outside and sharing with everyone.
Okay, very good. Okay, so volunteers. You have lots of volunteers that are sort of wandering around. Let's just say, probably won't happen, but let's just say that I was interested in volunteering. Now, I'm an arduous gardener, but an inept one. If someone is interested in coming down to Sunken Gardens and being a part of this volunteer program, can you help somebody like me?
I think that's a great question. I think that this garden and also the rose garden across the street would happen without our volunteers. Throughout our different volunteer opportunities, whether it's weeding or putting the plants in the ground or taking the plants out of the ground and putting them in a bed, these gardens would not be possible. And as far as an advanced gardener, it will take that. Also, new gardeners, anyone that wants to get their hands dirty and get some good exercise outdoors and enjoy different plants.
Okay. Again, because I could look, and I got a little tour the other day with some of the guys, and I would go, is that a weed? And they go, well, yes, that's a weed. And I would never know the difference. How do you help people make sure you spot the weeds instead of pulling out the plants?
Well, here's a little secret. I also have trouble spotting some of the weeds. So through different apps or through Google, we definitely do research on what needs to be pulled. So it's a learning process for us all. So and throughout, like I said, I'm only here for the past year, so I'm still learning different weeds. But it's a learning process for everyone, and that's why I love about this job. Every day I come and I learn something new, a new flower, and also working in the gardens, seeing the changes in the gardens, and whether the weed looks like this one day, a week later it's going to look different. So just the changes of the bloom and identifying those, it's a learning process for us all.
Cindy, this is a huge job. I mean, we've been here for a short while. You have a pickup truck out here that is almost full of weeds. This is just, I couldn't believe there were that many weeds growing in there.
Yes. I just want to touch on that. We have like 8 people here right now volunteering, and I myself got asked, is this a weed? And like Jeff said, I didn't know, and I'd been doing this for a long time. So the app that we have is just extremely helpful, so then we know what to pull and what not to pull. So that helps us a lot.
Okay, good. Now tell me, if somebody hears this program and thinks, boy, I think I'd like to give that a try. I'd like to come down and volunteer. What should they do?
Well, they contact me. I can give you a business card and put that information out there.
And you're here a lot, right? If somebody came down to the gardens, they'd find you.
Well, myself or Jeff or any of the employees. And we all wear Sunken Garden t-shirts, so they can approach any of us anytime, and we'll give them that information, and we'll get you on board right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So we also have a docent program, if I can touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The docent program consists of, again, volunteers that give tours of the garden, and they talk with the visitors and give them any information about all the plants or how the garden started and all of the history. So they basically sign up for 2 or 3 hour increments whenever they want during the week, and they're here at the garden and they talk with all the visitors, and it's very important for us to get all that information out there. So
what kind of a training program you have to go through, because it's complicated.
It is complicated, and there's questions from docents all the time as we go through the season. We do have a docent meeting and give out information then. There's also a handbook put together for them to have while they're here and to study on their own at their house, and plant lists. And again, they have the apps that they can help visitors with as well.
Okay, very good. Now, you have some very specific times that you really need more volunteers than others. Tell me about the different kinds of things throughout the course of the summer that volunteers are involved with.
Sure. Well, there's the Wake Up the Beds, which is Mother's Day weekend, the Saturday of Mother's Day weekend, and that's when we get all of the plants in the lower bowl put in. And starting from there then is when we have Garden Gap. And really, we'll take anybody, anytime. The height of it, it differs. And some days, like today, we have so many weeds that need to be pulled. And so it's just ongoing, and it's never ending, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks very complicated because there's always a theme that you're trying to create with all of the different plants and all the different flowers. But you're pretty good about laying out exactly where you want people to plant these things, right? It's not like they have to come in and figure out where they're going to do this.
Yes. Well, our supervisors will speak to that because they're the ones that design the garden and lay it out.
Sure.
So they have much more information on that part.
Okay, and any other times, things during the year that you really do need volunteers, maybe more than the normal number?
Well, every week is different. There's, like Jeff said, there's the rose garden on the other side, and there's all of this. So every week we go to where we need the most help. So basically, we have all this area that certain areas need more attention than others. It just depends on the week.
Sure.
So we really, it's a lot of work all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is a fantastic program.
Yeah.
Your volunteers are wonderful. We had a chance to sort of see them in action here.
Yes.
And I think we've got some that have volunteered to come on and talk about what it is that they do and how they went about doing it. So I think we will take a short break and we'll talk to some volunteers. Thank
Sounds
you
good.
so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're getting a chance to talk to some of the volunteers who come out to the Sunken Gardens and put in some, looks like backbreaking work. We're talking with Rita. Rita, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
How long have you been volunteering here at the Sunken Gardens?
This is my third year.
Third year?
Yes.
And how did you get involved in it in the first place?
I learned about the Sunken Gardens program for volunteers at Master Gardener on my very first year in taking the class.
Oh, very good. Okay. What are some of the things that you like doing? Is that the wrong question to ask? What do you like doing out here?
You know, there isn't anything that I really hate doing. It always feels so good to make things look better. So whatever it takes, whether it's pruning, deadheading, weeding, it's all worth it.
Are you pretty confident when you look back at this? I was trying to spot a weed over there and I wasn't having a lot of great luck, but you must be pretty good at it.
I know all my weeds that I have, and every now and then there'll be some that I'm not sure of, but they have the characteristics of it. So I do have a plant identifier that also has weed identifier on it, so that's a big help. It's a big game changer.
Rita, thank you so much. You're doing a fantastic job.
Well, thanks so much. My pleasure.
All right, we have another volunteer. We are under a tree here in the middle of the Sunken Gardens, and we're talking to a volunteer. David, how did you get involved in being a volunteer here?
Through the Master Gardener program with the Lancaster County Extension Office about 2 years ago. And my wife, Rita, who was doing it before me, so I've been doing it ever since. So it's my second year.
Very good. What are the kind of things that you're doing out here?
Mostly weeding.
That's a lot of weeds.
Yeah, there's a lot of weeds here. I've become more or less an expert on weeding, you know. I couldn't identify plants, but I can identify weeds, if you get my drift. But yeah.
Do you have a garden at home that you also learn from or have to take care of?
Yes, we have a garden at home, and then in Nebraska City where we live, we also take care of the Wildwood Historic House Victorian Gardens. So have lots of gardens to look after. It's almost too much.
Wow, so you come in from Nebraska City to volunteer. That's very cool.
Yeah, well, we like Sunken Gardens. It's really a beautiful place. You know, we've been to a few botanical gardens around the country, and this place is like second to none. You know, it's really a unique garden. Lincoln, it's a treasure in Lincoln. I'm surprised when I went to college here, I never came here, but it's a beautiful place.
I think there's a lot of people who don't realize it's here, and that's a mistake. They should come and check it out.
Yeah, we always went out to like Pioneers Park, but never Sunken Gardens. You know, I drove by it and, you know, never really stopped to appreciate it, but it's a wonderful place.
You do a wonderful job. Thanks for volunteering.
Well, thank you very much. Enjoy yourself.
And we have one more volunteer that we would like to talk to. This is Cheryl. Cheryl, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your involvement here at the Sunken Gardens, how long you've been doing this, and what are some of the things that you sort of like doing here?
Probably somewhere around 2015, because that's when I retired. And so this was part of my plan to work in the gardens, this garden and other gardens, and my own too. I just I just enjoy this garden in particular because it's just a lot of people coming through, and a lot of people, different people that I work with. And I wanted to, part of my plan was I wanted to meet new people, and I have been very successful at meeting that goal. And people ask you questions, or you ask other people questions, and it's a very learning environment too, so that appealed to me as well.
Very cool. Do you have a background in gardening, or is it just something that you've always loved to do and been doing it for a long time?
My grandmother and my mother were both gardeners. And so that's kind of where I think that it started with them. And then I had friends that were gardeners, and we all still have our own gardens. A lot of us do. And so it just carries on once it's kind of addictive.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. You do a wonderful job.
Well, thank you.
What a great show. We want to thank all of our volunteers, and we certainly want to thank Cindy and Jeff for taking some time to talk to us today. And we want to thank all of you for joining us as well. And remember, stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, it's never too late to live and learn.
I was doing some shopping and got a pop-up on my laptop. Computer had a virus. So I called the number on the page, and the guy on the phone wants to take control of my screen to sort it out. Then I remember a tip I got from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Control my screen. This is a tech support scam. Thankfully, my order still went through.
Recognize fraud sooner so your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Hello everyone, I'm Julie Masters and welcome to Live and Learn. It is an absolute pleasure to have with us as our guest, Dr. Judy Harvey. Dr. Harvey is an associate professor of practice in the Department of Special Education and Communication Disorders at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She is also a certified speech-language pathologist, and we are in for a treat. So, Dr. Harvey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, grateful to have you. May I call you Judy?
Please.
All right, Judy, thank you so much. Judy, as a certified speech-language pathologist, I know that our Live and Learn viewers would welcome the chance to really learn more about you and your background. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So as a speech-language pathologist, I earned my master's degree years ago, and my first job was as a clinician at Madonna Rehab Hospital. And so my background is really working with speech, language, and cognition for individuals with traumatic brain injury and stroke. And so I did that for about 18 years. Wow. And then decided it was time to refresh my learning. And I started taking classes, and that led to earning my PhD at UNL. And I'm still there. I'm still at UNL. I guess I kind of squatted there after I earned my PhD, and that's where I work now.
You know, Judy, for the students that I've met that have worked with you as their professor, as their research mentor, you just received so many accolades because not only are you an academic, but you also bring in the practical side, given your own life experience and how powerful. So I think for our viewers, could you talk about what is the role of a speech-language pathologist?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
you bring up a good point. When I was in my doctoral program, one of the things that my mentors used to say to me about me as a researcher was, you think like a clinician. I am a clinician. I couldn't help it. As a speech-language pathologist, we look at the development of speech, language, and cognition through the lifespan. And not only for typically developing individuals, but then for individuals from different diagnostic populations and how their own condition affects their speech and language and cognition.
Interesting. So you mentioned cognition, and as a researcher, what are some of your research interests as it relates to aging adults?
Well, I'm still really interested in individuals with brain injury and how that affects them as they age, but also typical aging and cognition and how our cognition changes as you're aging either typically or with a brain injury, or more and more individuals who have dementia and how their cognition changes as they age.
You know, it's when you talk about dementia, it is a brain injury, isn't it?
In a way, yeah.
way?
It's a degenerative or a changing, your cognition changing over time due to a disease process.
So one of the things that I think some of the viewers might be aware of, but maybe not all, is that you offer a workshop, a memory workshop, in conjunction with a colleague from Tabitha. Could you talk a little bit about the workshop and maybe what some of the areas are that you cover?
Yes, I'm really happy to talk about this.
Thank you.
My colleague Abby Davis and I started this workshop. We call it the Memory Workshop. We used to call it the Memory Clinic, but we got feedback that that was too clinical. That name was too clinical, so we call it the workshop. It's an 8-week workshop, an 8-week learning. Oh, now I'm stuck on a word, which I'm going to talk about. But each week we talk about something specific. So we talk about week 1, what is typical aging, what are red flags? Weeks 2, 3, and 4, we talk specifically about memory strategies that we use every day and the science behind them and how you can perfect those. And then the rest of the sessions, we talk about all the other factors that affect aging and cognition. So we have professionals come in and talk about nutrition or movement and exercise and how that affects cognition. I also want to bring up that our workshop does have a fee. It's $20 for the whole entire 8-week session. And we also keep the number of people that attend limited so that we can really personalize it to what people want to learn, what they're interested for themselves.
Well, I think it's certainly affordable in terms of the cost. You know, we were talking before this segment and the idea about people and their concerns about memory. And really, you know, just there's several. What are some of the concerns that you've heard from people taking the workshop?
Right. Well, one thing is word finding, which I just demonstrated.
You did that well.
I didn't mean to, but I did.
Yeah.
That is one of the number one things. People say, I can't find the words when I want them, or I can't remember names, and I used to be good at that. And so, spoiler alert, that is normal. That's normal aging. But the other thing I think is the major thing people come to me with is a concern about what is typical. How do I know if I am exhibiting signs of dementia? I have it in my family, or I was a caregiver. And so how do I know if I have it? And how do I maintain the skills, or how do I maintain what I'm currently doing to stay healthy cognitively? And one of the things I think how we help people is they either feel really relieved that their signs and symptoms are normal, or they feel relieved when other people talk about their own experiences and they find similarities, or they find relief in that we can help them navigate their red flag signals, you know, help them ask their physician certain questions or connect them with community resources. I think that's one of the major things we help with.
Judy, I know you limit it to 20 people, but I bet you could encourage a whole host of people that would want to attend the workshop. So if someone would like to register, how can they do that, or who can they call?
Right. We have a website, and so if you look up UNL Tabitha Memory Workshop on any one of your search engines, you'll find us, and there's a registration key in there where you can go in and register. We're also, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, OLLI, is nice enough to put us in their catalog. And I want to give that group a shout out. They are fantastic for lifelong learners. They put us in their catalog, so our January workshop is our next workshop, and we'll be in their winter catalog. And if you can't find either of those avenues, if you look up Judy Harvey at UNL, you'll find my contact information, and I can help you get started.
That's brilliant. I know that the OLLI folks, Bob Mickle, is a frequent guest on this particular program. So Thanks for giving them a shout out
Yeah.
as well. You know, Judy, as I mentioned earlier, so many students admire and respect you as a teacher and a researcher. How do you encourage your students to think about aging in new ways, in different ways?
Yeah, well, one of the things I want to bring up about the workshop is something that we like to call Stump the Student, right? So we encourage our participants to bring their questions. What have you heard or seen on TV that you've been told you must buy for healthy aging? Or what are the urban myths that you've heard? What are your questions? Bring those to the students, and the students are on the hook to go to the research literature and find the bottom line, and then to summarize that for our participants. And it's a great experience for everyone. It gives students that professional skill, and it gives our participants their answers. And then one other thing I think that the students get from the workshop is that they, I think, learn to work with the aging population without bias, without that ageism that some young professionals accidentally have.
That's beautiful how you just said that some young professionals accidentally have. So thank you for what you're doing to address ageism, particularly in your workshop. So Judy, this has been such a wonderful interview, and truly we could talk much longer, couldn't we? That's why I'm grateful you're my colleague. You know, a question that I ask all our guests, what gives you hope?
Oh, yes, I like that question. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome.
You know, I'm grateful that we can offer this workshop, and I am so happy that I fill seats every semester. We offer it every semester. That means that there are people out there that are continuing their own learning and looking at their own learning and development. They're out there socializing. They are doing all the things that we tell them to do to age healthily. And that really inspires me.
Oh, that's beautiful. You know, really, we want to move away from this medical model.
Right.
To age means that you have to be ill, but rather it's more of a social model or a health model that says to age means you can be healthy well into the last days of your life.
Right.
So with that said, Judy, thank you so much for being part of this program. And to our viewers, remember, it's never too late to live and learn.
My kid has been asking for this hot new gaming thing, and I was like, okay, he had a birthday coming up anyway. So I finally find the video game online, in stock. Thing is, it was from this shoddy website full of typos. That's when I remembered a tip I got from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Bogus website? This is a shopping scam. Got us matching t-shirts instead.
Recognize fraud sooner. He loves his. So your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Welcome to Live and Learn. Mel Maines became an institution as the evening newscaster at KLLN, and he was in that position for 34 years, beginning in 1961. I'm Doug Jose, host of Live and Learn, and it's a real pleasure to have today as my guest Karen Maines, his wife. Welcome, Karen, to the program, and we look forward to hearing all about this real fine gentleman, Mel Maines. First of all, let's talk about you and Mel. First of all, how did you meet? I think that's an interesting story in itself.
It is a very, it was really, we were having, of course, Homestead Days are in Beatrice, and we always had a pageant, and we had a bunch of girls that would do their talents, and then they were selected queen for Homestead Days. Well, one of the people on the committee said, well, let's get Mel Maines to MC this. And so he called him, and he said yes, he would do it. And so he came to the rehearsal that we rehearsed all day long. That was my first, that was in 1982. And then we worked together all day. And then the next year, in 83, I thought, well, I'll just call him myself. I know him now. I can call him. And so I called him at the station, and he said, yeah, he'd be glad to do it again. Well, then that was in January, and March came along, and all of a sudden I got, well, my son answered the phone, Bill, and he said, Mom, Mel Maines is on the phone. And I said, okay. And so I went and answered the phone, and he said, well, if I want to know if I'd like to go out to dinner. And I said, well, yeah, I would. You know, I thought we were going to talk about the pageant coming up in June again. Well, we had a nice conversation, and we got along really well. And so in between then and June, we had a lot of telephone conversations. I never seen him again. But all of a sudden, one time after the pageant, and in July, he called and he said, where do you live? And he said, I'm in Beatrice. And he had his car loaded with all his belongings, and he moved in. Just like that. And so we were together. That was in 1983, and then I had 2 sons still in college. Bill and Bob were still in college. Steve was out, and Janine was out. And so he moved in, and we started. That's how our relationship started. And then in 1990, we got married. We'd be married 35 years now if he'd still be living. And we had the best life. We did tours, and we loved dancing and gardening and everything.
Well, we'll come back to some of those experiences a bit later, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how he got started into broadcasting, first of all.
Okay. Well, he was 19 years old, and they were just putting KWBE radio in Beatrice on the air. And it was 112.5 North 6th Street in Beatrice where they had their first studio. And Mel was there, and he helped put up the tower where it still is today, where Quebe is right now. And then they built the station. And he hung around, and he did every kind of job he could, helping get the tower up and everything. And finally they hired him, and at 19 years old he was the first announcer at KWBE. And on Sunday morning he turned St. John's Lutheran Church on at 9 o'clock, and that was in 1949.
Then after that he was drafted into the Army, and he did some broadcasting while he was in the Army.
He went to different stations. He started out a radio station when he was in the Army, and eventually he got into a TV station when he was in the Army. And so then when he was there, he went to Shenandoah, Iowa in between there, and he was the Agriculture Hall of Fame. And then he was a broadcaster at both radio and TV in Kansas City when he was in the service.
And after the service, he spent more time in Kansas City. But then there came up there was an interview in Lincoln.
Yes, and
tell us about that.
Mike Krasny was the newscaster at KOLN at the time, and he had died at a very young age, 30-some years old, and he. Mel heard about that through the lines, wires, and heard about it, and so he decided to apply for the job. And Bob Taylor was the one that interviewed him, and he was the weatherman at the time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he said he said it took an 8-hour interview.
Wow.
All day. And he said he had to write and he had to type, and matter of fact, I still have his typewriter, old typewriter. But anyway, he finally got the job. Bob hired him because he liked his voice, and so that's how he started at KOLN in 1961.
And that leads me to the next question. You mentioned voice, but that was one of the real qualities about his broadcasting was his voice.
He had a very distinct voice. And everybody could understand him. And he was very conscientious about making sure he pronounced everybody's names right, and that everything, so he didn't, so everybody knew who he was talking about, and so yes, he had a very good voice. I told him he could whisper and you could still hear him. His voice
And
carried.
then that attention to detail was another feature of his broadcasting.
Yes.
You mentioned about getting names correct, but he had an affinity for making sure everything was correct.
Always. And he'd sometimes some names that were hard to pronounce, he'd call me and say, "How do you pronounce this name?" And before he would go on the air, he wanted to make sure he had the spelling right and the pronunciation right. So yeah, he wanted to make sure. He loved Beatrice, and he loved Lincoln and KOLN.
And then for his work, he did receive some awards, and we have a display of some of those.
Yes,
but,
he got so many awards.
The Hall of Fame for broadcasting in Nebraska. Tell us about that.
Well, in March of 2003, he was named Broadcaster of the Year, and he was to go to Omaha to wherever they do that presentation, and I've forgotten where we went. But anyway, he had cancer at that time, and we thought maybe he could still go in August. That was March when they announced that he got the Broadcaster of the Year. But he died May 27th, and the presentation was in August 3rd. And so I went, and my son Bill went, and his wife, and Ken and Deb Shimmick went with me. And so that was a pretty hard thing to do because he had just passed away, and it was really hard for me. And had to get up in front of that whole bunch of people and talk about Mel. But he did. He got the Newscaster of the Year award, but he knew he was getting it, but he didn't live long enough to receive it himself.
I'd like to go back to your life with Mel, and one of the things you like to do was dance, and that's how I met you, as a matter of fact, was at a dance.
Yes,
that's how I got to know you.
Yeah, I know it. That was, I was really happy when we finally met. I didn't know who you were, but it was nice.
You and Mel.
We danced a lot.
And how many dances did you go to over a month's time or whatever?
Well, we'd go 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow.
We'd go to Playmore Ballroom. We always had 2 dances in Beatrice at the VFW, and we had a whole group of dancers and that are friends. And so we'd go Friday and Saturday night there. Sometimes Wednesday night we'd go to Playmore. And sometimes we'd go down to the Moose in Marysville. They used to have dances down there.
Okay.
And then we had Sunday dances once a month in Beatrice for the singles and couples dance. And so we danced a lot. And everybody knew that we were dancers, and everybody just sat and watched us.
Another thing that you did with Mel was you did a lot of traveling. And sponsored through the TV station as well.
Yes, we did. It was through KOLN and Holiday Vacations. We did 18 tours, starting in 1988, and we toured until actually 2002, and that was the last tour we did. We did a Caribbean cruise at that time. That was the last tour, but we were in Hawaii 3 times, in Alaska 3 times, in Europe twice, and Australia, New Zealand, and we were all over the world doing holiday vacation tours. And he always booked a full bus, and then when we went to the New England states in October, and we had 3 bus loads, which was about 150 people. And so every day we'd have to switch to a different bus and ride with a different group.
Sure, okay, so you got to know everybody.
And we got to know everybody that was on our tour that booked through, and because of him, they booked all them tours.
Now, Mel grew up just outside of Beatrice, but Beatrice was really a home to him, and
yes.
He continued that throughout his life in terms of being involved in the community.
Yes, he was always involved in the community, and he did a lot of things. One of them was the Homestead National Monument. He emceed everything, and he was on the Gage County Fair Board, and he did so many things for Beatrice, and some of them probably don't even remember all the things he did, but he did a lot of things. And we were in pageants and in shows and fashion shows, and everything that was going on in Beatrice, he was part of it.
Karen, this has been really interesting to learn more about Mel, but I want to finish up with a couple of things. First of all, there's a motto that you have, it's already on the gravestone for you and Mel. Tell us about that.
Well, he always had this slogan he said was, I want to be a man that you can trust. And that is on our gravestone, and he really lived by that. I want to be someone that you can trust. And he really meant that.
The other thing that, to come full circle, he sort of finished up his broadcasting career at the radio station in Beatrice.
Yeah, after 50 years, after he retired from KOLN, he came back to KWBE Radio in Beatrice, and when they celebrated their 50th anniversary, he was the announcer again, and he turned it on the air that morning the same way he did 50 years earlier when he was 19.
That's really interesting.
Yes, and then he worked there. He did the evening news, and he did the Sunday morning, and he always turned the churches on the air, and he worked till noon, I think, on Sundays.
So after he retired from the TV station, he continued his career
back at KWBE Radio, and we live about 6 blocks from KWBE, and so it was just it was just good for him to get out and be back doing it. And he worked with the greatest staff there at KWBE too, just like he did at KOLN. They were just the nicest people, and I'm still friends with most of them.
Karen, this has been really interesting, and appreciate you sharing your life with Mel with us, and bringing us some of the anecdotes from his life. And is there one last thing that unique thing about his broadcasting career that sticks in your mind?
Well, there is a couple things. One of them was he had a connection with Walter Cronkite, and he had he spent some time with Walter Cronkite, and he gave him a lot of good. That's when he was younger, and gave him a lot of things about being a newscaster.
That's pretty neat.
Yes, and then he also, when he was in Shenandoah, Iowa, he was met the Everly brothers, their parents, and the Everly brothers.
Wow!
And he did that. He had to MC a farm show there, and they were the entertainment. And so he did that, and there was a lot of other things like that people that he got to interview. But I thought Walter Cronkite and him had a really good connection.
That certainly would be a big occasion for him.
Yes.
Karen, thanks a lot, and it's a real pleasure to have you as our guest, and thanks again for sharing the life of Mel Maines.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, it's never too late to live and learn about the iconic broadcasters and their contribution to our community.
So, I'm playing with the dog, and I get this robocall from the Social Security Administration saying my card had been suspended and I had to call them back immediately. And that's when I remembered a tip from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Random robocall? This is a Social Security scam.
Recognize fraud sooner.
Robots.
So your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Hello, I'm Bill Ainsley, your host for this segment of Live and Learn. Folks like to read books and magazines and all sorts of interesting things such as farming, recipes, voyages, and maybe even how to build a hoop house. They don't want to be held back even if they can't see the article or hold the paper. There are ways they can still get the information. One of those ways is through the Nebraska Library Commission Talking Book and Braille Service. With me today is the director of the Talking Book and Braille Service, Gabe Kramer.
Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Gabe, please tell us what the Commission and the Talking Book Service do to help people.
Well, the Commission as a whole is responsible for the statewide promotion, development, and coordination of library services. The Talking Book and Braille Service, or TBBS, as we like to shorten it to, is the state's library for the blind and visually impaired. TBBS also works very closely with the National Library Service, which is a division of the Library of Congress.
For full disclosure, I should tell you that for 25 years before I retired, I worked for TBBS and managed the studios where the talking books are recorded. First, please tell us who can use the service and how to get enrolled.
Well, to qualify for our service, you must be legally blind or visually impaired, have a physical handicap that does not allow you to read regular standard print, or have a reading disability such as dyslexia. To apply, you just fill out a simple application. The application will ask you general information, name, address, phone number, but most importantly, it will ask for a certifying authority. That certifying authority can be someone like a medical doctor, an eye doctor, a social worker, a therapist, or even your school teacher, school principal, or your local librarian.
Well, thousands of recordings are available to the borrowers, many of which are recorded in the studios here in Lincoln.
That is correct. So TBBS, we have a collection development policy, though, that guides us when choosing books. Our books must be written by a Nebraska author, take place in Nebraska or about the larger Great Plains.
So some of the people who make the recordings are the producer and the narrator.
That's correct. So we use a simple recording program called SoundForge for our recordings. And we have two booths. Each booth has a microphone in it, and the producer sits in one, the narrator sits in the other. When a session first begins, we do some preliminary things such as check the levels, which would be checking the volume of the narrator. Maybe we will go through the format or the order that we will record things. You know, magazines, layouts today are all over the place, and we will tell the narrator, read the title first, read the author next, read the text last, and so on.
So once the producer cues the narrator, then the narrator starts reading.
That's correct. So both the narrator and producer, they are actually reading the same material at the same time. The narrator is reading aloud, and our studios are configured so that the producer can follow along in live time. If the narrator makes a mistake, we will simply tell them to stop and go back and correct the mistake that they made. We strive for perfection, Bill. And even if it's something as simple as the cat ran up the tree, but you say a cat, we're going to go back and make that correction.
So there is much more to the recording program, including what we call post-production and review.
That's correct. So post-production consists of cleaning up the audio. This could include things like taking out breaths. We actually have specialized software that is able to find the audio waves that make a breath and remove those automatically. We don't have to do any work to it. We take out the clicks and clacks or maybe page turn noises in post-production. For review, we only do for books. We don't do for magazines. Magazines are timely, so we like to get those out as soon as possible. But for books, they're permanent. So what happens during the review process is I have another staff member who will sit and listen to the finished recording and follow along with the text. And they are looking for any mistakes that may have been missed during the initial recording process or post-production. And then we will send those mistakes back to the narrator and the producer, and we will make those corrections. We call that final step fixes.
Remember back in my days, those breaths on the pattern on the computer, they sort of looked like little flat footballs, and you would look for them and try to take them out. But
Yep.
I guess now it's much easier to do that.
Much easier, much easier.
So once this is all done, the folks at home still have to have ways to listen to the recordings.
That's correct. So we have 3 different types of machines. I only brought 2 of them with us today. We have the DS1 and the DA1. The DS1 is our standard machine. It's our most circulated machine. The only difference between the standard and the advanced machine is our advanced machine has an extra row of buttons right here. They both do the same exact thing, but I actually find the advanced one with the extra buttons a little bit easier to use, especially if you are reading magazines and want to skip from article to article and don't just want to listen straight through a book, for example. This is our brand new machine. It's called the DA2. We've only had this machine for about 1 month. And what I like about this is it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability, which our older machines do not. So if you have Bluetooth headphones or a Bluetooth speaker, you can shoot this over to those devices. And with our Wi-Fi capability, you are able to use our Bard program on this machine.
So would you demonstrate just loading the machine, please?
Absolutely. So we have a cartridge here. It's about the size of a credit card, and it's just a simple USB drive. And it just slides right in the machine. You hit play, and away you go.
That sounds so simple.
It is very simple.
Almost like the old style cassette machines.
I think these are even easier to use. There's no flipping sides.
Oh, good. See, another way to listen, and I think you alluded to this, is through the Bard program, by downloading material.
That's correct. So Bard stands for Braille and Audio Reading Download. There are a few different ways that you can take advantage of the Bard account. The easiest way, and I always tell people, if you have a smart device, Apple or Android, don't get one of these machines. Just use our Bard mobile app. You can search for material, you can download the material, and you can listen to the material all on that one device. It's so simple and easy to use. We also have something called our Bard website. It's just a simple website. You can go on there, search for books, and download them to your computer. The only caveat is you have to then transfer them to a cartridge and then play the cartridge in one of these machines. The final way is called Bard Express. Bard Express is only for Windows users, so I'm sorry, Apple users, but you can't use this. Bard Express allows you to listen to the books on your Windows computer after you download them from the website. You don't need to transfer them.
We have about 5 minutes left in our segment, but let's talk about the Talking Book and Braille service is not entirely about talking books. The other half of the name is Braille. So, Gabe, would you please explain Braille?
Absolutely. So Braille is a series of raised dots developed by Louis Braille in 1821. The Braille cell is an arrangement of 6 dots in 2 columns of 3. And a fingertip is able to encompass an entire cell with one impression and move rapidly from one cell to the next.
So not all the books in the Braille collection are only in Braille.
That is true. I think my favorite part of the collection is what we call our Twin Vision books. Twin Vision books look like your typical children's picture book that you would check out from the library or buy from a bookstore, except in between the pages is a Braille overlay. So it allows a Braille parent or a blind parent to read the Braille to their child, but their child who may be sighted can still read along and look at the pictures at the same time.
Well, that sounds so interesting and so much fun that the family can all get together and do this. Even if one of the persons cannot see the material, they can still be reading it along with their child.
Yes, they're so fantastic. I wish we could circulate them more.
So this all sounds like a very expensive proposition. What is the cost to the folks at home, including the mailings and including these machines and so forth?
There is no cost to the folks at home. It is absolutely free, Bill. Delivery between the library and the patron is used, we use the U.S. Postal Service for that. There's no postage necessary. All you have to do is stamp the envelope, free matter for the blind, and you'll get it to your house.
So what other exciting features are available through the service?
We've got a couple other things that patrons could take advantage of. We have our Braille e-reader. It's a 20-cell electronic Braille display that will read electronic Braille. I can't read Braille, so I'm not entirely sure how the machine works, but our patrons love it. Also, the National Library Service has a program called Braille on Demand. Braille on Demand is only about a year old, and it allows a patron to contact NLS and request a Braille book, no matter how big or how small. They only get to do this once a month, though. NLS will create that book on demand for them, deliver it to their home, and they get to keep it. They don't have to return it. It's theirs forever.
That's very good. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot now, because this is not in our script. Tell me a little bit about the history of the Nebraska Library Commission and the Talking Book and Braille Service.
Well, the Talking Book and Braille Service, next year we'll be celebrating our 75th anniversary. The Talking Book and Braille Service has been around for 75 years under some different names, but we're hoping to have a celebration next year. As far as the National Library Service, it's been around for 90 plus years. It originally was created to serve veterans coming home from World War I.
And for more information, folks, we'd like for you to contact, the number is 402-471-4038 or 800-742-7691. To go online, it's nlc.nebraska.gov/TBBS. I know the Nebraska Library Commission Talking Book and Braille Service is helping to make life much more interesting for thousands of Nebraskans. Gabe Kramer, I want to thank you for being here today to explain how this state agency is helping many of the citizens of our state.
Thank you for having me, Bill. I enjoyed my time here.
So whether you read a book or magazine with your fingers or your ears, you can always find a way to live and learn.